hit it. All right.
Are you sure?
Yes, I did. I hit it. So, here I am with a special guest today. This is going to be a very interesting conversation. So, as you all know, I just did a recent post about JT Thompkins and the disqualification and basically just calling people out because there's a lot of shade and shame being thrown on the sport right now, and I'm just like, come on, people, let's be better than that. Well, I've been talking about it a lot, and my beautiful wife Jessica said, I want to talk about this. I want to get into this conversation. So here she is, my beautiful wife Jessica, and she's going to give her 2 cents. And let me forewarn you, she's not a big historic bass fishing fan nerd like me. So this is going to be coming from a totally different perspective. But she has been, we've been married for going on 13 years here soon. And I've always shared my passion of fishing, so she's seen the behind the scenes, the head of the scenes, the dirty, the good, the whole works of the fishing industry from my perspective and from others' perspectives with social media and YouTube and all of that. But without further ado, here's my beautiful wife Jessica joining the I don't even want to call it a podcast. Yeah. Podcasts are overdone nowadays, but we just want to talk about the situation. So this is the Not Podcast with Jessica Hudson.
Yeah.
Here she is. You want to introduce yourself?
You already did. You did a great job.
I mean, you want to talk about what you're going to bring to the table?
No, I'm just going to talk about it in general, since everybody's news feed over this weekend has been flying off the handle with every possible scenario, rumors, things happening that aren't happening. It's been a crazy weekend. Derek's ate up with fishing, so that means that he's telling me to get my hand off of the table.
Shaking the camera.
I talk with my hands, so I'm moving the table with my hands there. But since he's ate up with it, you can imagine that the Facebook page is something that I started. It was mine. And then his name got on it. And so now it's become a fishing, more so fishing than anything. So the feed is ate up with everything that's been going on. So we both had some opinions and we've had some spirited conversations about it. So we just thought we would come here and share those thoughts.
Well, I'd like to apologize first and foremost for making our life all about fishing. But as you know, this sport is... it's consuming. It's so multifaceted. There's so many, from sponsorships to competitions to just there's so many variables and parts of this sport that it kind of has to be a little bit consuming if you want to be competitive in it. You can tell by just some of the anglers that are very competitive right now. They eat, sleep, breathe fishing, and it's to be competitive, you kind of have to do that a little bit. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, you pretty much have to live it all the time. It's not just tournaments or on the water. I mean,
yeah, you got to keep up with the trends, keep up with what's going on as far as situations like this and rulings and rule changes that might change and just it's a lot to keep up with. But today we just want to keep it simple, and let's talk about so
it's really a follow-up.
It is a follow-up, but it's also a follow-up with addendums. And so JT Thompkins has come on to his social media channels and has added that he has 2 cents that he wants to share, and he has given his side of the story. There has been, I don't know how many videos dropped that are sharing their sides of the story. One of them I'm going to mention is Cerebral Tackle. He does a lot of investigative style stuff. He talks to the people that are actually in the positions that are making these decisions. He found out who made the protest against JT Thompkins.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, so he posted that on his channel. Go check him out, Cerebral Tackle. Obviously, all of the people who have podcasts and just have a voice on social media. I mean, everybody's chiming in on this because if we don't know anything else about this sport, we know that this sport is fragile to an honor system and to cheating and to allegations because it's 2 years ago now, right? The walleye cheaters, when they hit, it actually came back on the bass fishing industry, just because it was fishing related. Even though it had nothing to do with bass fishing, it had nothing to do with anglers that were part of the bass fishing trails, none of that. But it came back on us, and I think that's why everybody has an opinion on this, and everybody's talking about it. I think the main thing I'm trying to reiterate with my post I just did and this one and all of my social media response and stuff like that is we have a history as a society. We have a history of taking just a little bit of information, putting our spin and our opinions and our thoughts into it, and then casting blame and being malicious and just talking to people with no malice and just being vicious about what we say.
And you can see that right now on JT's post.
Yeah.
That he posted. It's like he
under the
came
comments
out,
section.
he
Yeah.
explained himself. The one thing that I thought was so telling in what he said is whoever, the reason that he was given the test in the first place is because somebody filed, was it a dispute? Is that what you call it? A protest.
Yeah. And
he says in there, which again, you don't know if it's true, but you have to believe what he said. I mean, why else would he say it? He put it out there publicly that, whatever was filed, protested against him was already found to be not true.
Yes.
Then he didn't elaborate on that. And then he went on to tell the rest of his story. And then, to read the comments that come after that it's, there's some support there. There's some of his fans there, friends, family, whoever they are, some people. But then there's just so much hate. I mean, social media is just filled with that. Keyboard warriors just get on there and just say whatever. But without having all the facts, you just automatically assume that he's guilty.
Yeah, and we talked about it that, I mean, there's people that are posting about his results from his polygraph, his truth examination. There are answers that he passed, but
specific
questions about the allegations that were brought against him, and he passed those, and obviously was not lying about those. But nobody's talking about that. Everybody wants to harp on what Bass and other media forums have put out, that he failed 2 of the questions out of this polygraph. And I've been in polygraphs; they're not just 2, 3, 4 questions. There are a bunch of questions. I mean, he failed 2 of them.
But it's interesting he failed 2. That if you go back and look when the season started, there was a lot of conflict going on about the young guys, the guys that didn't know they had made the Elite Series yet, that were still fishing the Opens, that they were still in a position where the schedule had dropped and they were able to still get information. And so a lot of them did. And so you don't even know if that's his situation, but it could be.
Allegedly did. So that's a whole part of this conversation that just goes off into another sector, is that the Bassmaster schedule for the Elite Series came out before the Opens were over. The EQ Opens race to get into the Elite Series was over. And there were anglers that knew that they were going to get in, I'm sure. And allegations are that they had an idea. They felt like if they do good the next couple tournaments, they're going to get into the Elite Series. And at that point, they were not forbidden to get information on the lakes. It wasn't a rule violation. But once they qualified for the Elite Series and the schedule was out, those 2 things coincide. they cannot get any information. And it's alleged that they got information before that. And a lot of people are saying it's a gray area, and it is, and Bass has addressed it since then, and Bass has done their part to try to change the rules and to try to fix that so that it doesn't happen this year or any year after this. But at the same time, that puts a class that they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't break rules.
Nope.
They went in between the rules, possibly, allegedly. You know, we don't have facts of this stuff. But, I mean, that's really a lot of what bass fishing is trying to get an advantage in ways that you're not breaking rules, but you're doing something different than other people. That's, I mean, whether you're studying in a different way, whether you have got a new software that come out that gives you new footage of the lakes and you're able to look at things differently. I mean, there's always advancements, there's always changes, and there's always new products and things. And we're, as a sport, we are always trying to get an advantage and trying to make ourselves be a better angler. So I can, at the same time, I can side with those guys if they knew it's not a rule violation if I get information right now, and I'm possibly going to make the Elite Series. I mean, why wouldn't they try to get information? I mean, it's set up for them to be able to do that. Really,
at least it was.
Yeah.
I don't know what the new rules are. I don't keep up with it.
Yeah.
But I had heard, I've heard through him that they've changed.
They've changed the rules since then. They have made that backdoor way of getting information. They've changed that to where it's not supposed to be an issue anymore.
Yeah. But point being for JT,
yes.
you have no
and
idea.
all the rookie class.
Yeah, you have no idea when he took that test, that specific question that was about, did you do this? Did you get any information or whatever it was?
Yeah.
You don't know what somebody's thinking. Was he like running through all the things in his mind? Like, could I possibly know that? And, you're thinking about it, and then that's why he failed the test. I mean, for that particular question, you just don't know. But
and that gets back to allegations, and that gets back to rumor mill and all that. But
so you got to take what somebody said for face value.
Yeah.
He got on there. He has never been proven to be distrustful before that I'm aware of. I don't know.
Yeah, not that I know of.
But, I mean, he's been open and honest, and when you look at it and you think, well, golly, whoever accused him of something, that reported something to then have him test it, to have that opportunity to fail that test. I mean, I haven't seen this information that you have of who it was, whatever, because I feel like those people should be called out. That's a whole nother story.
That's getting a whole another.
That was the whole weekend conversation of, I feel like those people should get in trouble themselves.
Getting back to the some of the things that I think about as an angler in the sport, and this is just me coming from a place of, let's don't cast shade, let's don't point fingers, let's don't be hurtful with our words. If you're trying to poke the bear at any of the rookies for getting waypoints in that gray area, let's just say, let's just keep it to that fact, okay? I'm here to tell you, I've got lakes that are at home that I have got waypoints on waypoints on waypoints. And it doesn't mean I'm going to go out there and win every tournament. And not to mention, they're playing against anglers that have been in the Elite Series for 15, 20, 30. Rick Clunn, 50 years as an angler? How many waypoints does he have? And let's just be honest, that getting that kind of information doesn't make you be successful consistently over and over and over again. Those kids, I'm saying kids because most of the rookie class was a younger bunch. I think it was the youngest rookie class to come into the Elite Series. But they know their technology. They know their forward-facing sonar. They know the finesse trends that are going on right now, and they just know how to catch them. Let's do not discredit any of that. And I think that's what really burns me up about the whole, let's jump on allegations, let's jump on this cheater bandwagon, let's all be a mob mentality of let's point the blame at these people. Those kids still can catch fish.
Yep.
They are great anglers. No question.
They work hard.
They work hard. I remember specifically JT Thompkins did a podcast right after he won the EQs, and I had just heard of this kid. Like, I didn't really know who he was in the EQs. I kind of kept up with it a little bit, but he won the EQs, and I'm like, wow, this kid's doing really good. I mean, I knew it was a stout field to win the EQs, and when they did the podcast, I can't even remember who the podcast was with. I really do not remember if it was with Bass or if it was with whoever. I don't know. But he was in his vehicle. He had just won the points EQs, and he was in his vehicle, and he mentioned, I'm going to a lake right now to study. I'm going to a lake to put some idle hours in and to get waypoints. And he even mentioned in that podcast, he says, most of the time I put so much practice in and I put so much time on the water in, I find way too much information for a 3-day or 4-day event. I find way too much. And he also brought up that he put 700 hours on his motor a year. That's work. That's hard work. Mm-hmm. And if he got assistance in any way, I guarantee you he still would have had a successful year without that assistance if you took that away from him, because that kid is working. And as far as I know, the whole rookie class is that way. It's built that way. You hear them talk. That's the way they are putting the time on the water. Mm-hmm. They are fishing their butts off, and they are keeping up with all the trends, and they know how to finesse them and how to scope them just as good as anybody. And at the end of the day, we need to stop bashing them with false information, with alleged information, and destroying what they've worked really hard for, because that's not the way to do this.
Yeah, because it wasn't just JT. That's what ended up coming out over the weekend. Trey McKinney, who is also a rookie, won the Rookie of the Year, over the weekend. It was, put out there that he was also given a polygraph test. He passed. But it was like, why? I haven't heard anything or seen anything. Well, why was he given a test? Was it because that he won the Rookie of the Year? If that, there are some tournaments, and just knowing him and being around the tournaments enough, and some of the smaller ones that are local here, and, you hear, they'll say, we're going to give the polygraph to the first 3, people that are in first, second, and third, and that's automatic, and it's going to happen. So I don't know if that's how the bass works, if it's, the top 3 and then your Angler of the Year at the end of the year, they get it automatically. I don't know if that's the rule or not. I don't know if, the other guys, I haven't heard anything, from the brothers that apparently, one of them I think won the
Johnston brothers
Angler of the Year. And one won the event. So I don't know all those things, but you hear people calling them out too, like, why weren't they tested? Well, Trey didn't come out and say that he was tested. That information came from somebody else, and then somebody questioned on his page, and he answered it. So you don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a normal thing for everybody to come out and say, "Oh yeah, I took a polygraph test and I passed." I mean, I don't think that's normally common, but it just put more emphasis on this rookie class that continues to be. It's the way it looks that the rookie class is kind of being picked on.
And then it brought up the question to me is like, how are they giving lie detector tests to the people that have language barriers? Because there's a lot of different countries represented in the Elite Series. How are they giving them to the people with language barriers?
Yeah, that doesn't seem fair.
That doesn't. So that's a whole nother can of worms. But something you do know about, and this is, I think, a hot part of this conversation, is I think this is part of the catalyst of what is making this such a big deal. Is
you go ahead.
Is the older, more tenure anglers getting beat by younger, newer class anglers, and that's a source of contention. And you brought it up. You said, I understand that.
I mean, we don't, Derek doesn't fish on the bass side of things. He's on the MLF side.
Yeah.
So I know those guys more than I know the bass guys. And when I look at them, I've asked him questions throughout the year. Drew Gill lights a fire on everybody, it seems like, all the time
The guy's a hammer.
at the MLF events. And Derek's friends with him. You know, he's a good guy, and he's the same way. He puts the work in.
Yep.
He learns his equipment, and forward-facing sonar is one of those. It's a new piece of equipment for them to use, and he's become an expert on it. And
Yep.
this was the comment that I made to Derek, and it's a little bit frustrating because you look at us, and if you just forget fishing for a second, and you look at it from a perspective of just other jobs within the marketplace, just in the world today. You look at it, software engineers. My son's going into that, and so you look at that, and that's what came to mind because my dad used to be a software engineer, and my son is going into it, you know, many, many, many years later. But my dad was part of that class where he was an older person. He learned it the way he learned it. He did it for years, 15, 20 years. He didn't keep up with the updates that happened with the software, with how it was going. And so he was laid off because he had a choice. You can either learn it and stay, or you can leave because you choose not to. He just made a choice not to.
Which is very much like what's going on in fishing right now.
You see that with the equipment. I mean, that's the electronics. As they come out with new things, I mean, companies are always trying to one up and how can we make it better. I mean, you just see that. You see that when you go to the ICAST event. You see that when you go everywhere else. All the shows that are local. And you look at that and you go, okay, these younger guys, like my son would be, software engineer. I mean, when those companies, recruiters are reaching out, they're reaching out to the guys that just came out of school because they know they're more up to date on the current software, the current way to do things. And that's what's happening with these younger guys. That's the way I see it, that they haven't fished for 15 years one way. This is their way.
Yeah,
and
they're
so
all in on the forward-facing
15 years
sonar.
from now, they're going to be the older guys. And then the other new guy who knows what's going to be out 15 years from now. And they're going to be.
At the same time, there's a huge pool of anglers. Jacob Wheeler.
Yeah.
Patrick Walters. Cody Huff. There's a pile of... list can go and go. Yeah. There's a lot of anglers that were tested and successful before this forward-facing sonar trend came on board. And now that it has, they've embraced it. They've
learned it.
Taken what they knew before and they've added it to it and adapted it to it. And Jacob Wheeler just won another AOY title doing the same thing. So
that's the point. Like I was saying, my dad, you were offered the opportunity. I mean, everybody has the same opportunity. You know, the equipment comes out. It's not like they're giving the equipment to somebody early. The young guys say, here it is. Y'all get to practice with it for a year. No.
Yeah, they're not
Everybody's getting it at the same time, and everybody has the same opportunity to learn it. It's who's putting more time in to learn it.
Yeah.
You know it, but you haven't put the same time in Drew Gill. If you went and got beside him, I mean, my comment was that he's probably the best out there that does it. So, I mean.
Well, me, my partner Steve Lopez, a traveling partner, Mike Greenwell, a bunch of my buddies that I fish with, we've talked about this, is what's handicapping us, the anglers that have a history of fishing other ways, is sometimes we go down that rabbit trail too far.
Yeah.
And I know several tournaments this year, if I could go back and say, why did I burn 3 hours of that event doing something that I used to catch them on?
Past experience.
Yeah. And instead of leaning on the new trends and because though I was catching them, and though those things still work, and there's still tournaments won that way, it seems like the bar is raised. I mean, how many 100-pound Century Club belts have been given away in the Elite Series in the past 4 years? A lot. And a lot of them are from scoping style events because it's very strong technology, and it's kind of hard for people that have history doing other things to get away from it and to be like these younger guys that are dominating and pushing their chips all in. But at the same time, it's part of the evolution of fishing. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. When Mark Rose was very dominant back in the day when structure scans started to first come on board, He took structure scan and he said, I'm going to learn this. And he put tons of time on the water. I remember watching tons of videos and well, not podcasts at that time, but just like YouTube videos and stuff that was just him talking about it. That he went all in on that new technology, and it helped him dominate. He won a lot of events. Lures. There's a lot of lures that can be that determining factor. You got this, and you know how to use it. The glide baits, for example. There are people that are dominating.
What was the lure with all the? I forget the guy that won on it. He made him it was a small town guy. Remember, it has all the hooks on it. It's like a bunch of different.
Alabama rig.
Yeah, the Alabama rig. That thing hit the thing was fire, but everybody was complaining about it.
Andy Pulse, when it first came out, he won several tournaments, local level style tournaments with his rig that he invented. And then when he started putting it in the hands of pros like Paul Elias, it started taking off. And that's what we're saying is that's the evolution of bass fishing. If you're against that, then you're against bass fishing, in my opinion, because that's the way bass fishing has always been. Always. From the first time someone took a bamboo pole that was dipped in the reeds and changed that to a conventional reel. I mean, that's the way this sport has always grown.
Is that not the point of ICAST, to introduce
That's
new
the
products,
point of this
new
sport.
Innovations for the
it's for
sport.
us to be. It's for us to have better mouse traps to catch the mouse. We're always trying to one up a species that seems to be, has a brain this big, but seems to every year be smarter and smarter and smarter and just be ahead of us. So, it's part of the sport. I cringe. I cringe when I see those comments and those arguments of it's not the sport we love. It's always been the sport. I mean, I grew up looking at Bassmasters when I was this tall, and it's always been part of the sport. It's always been what is the new. I remember vividly my dad and I learning how to crush them on our home river. We would go and do float trips on our home river, and we figured out how to crush them on a fluke that we were taking, and this was the old finesse flukes. These were not the new Zoom Super flukes and all the modifications they got out now. It was just the regular old finesse fluke, and we would run a sewing needle through the fluke and add a treble hook to it. And what it did is it allowed us to hook those fish that were swatting at it. And we would go on a float trip and we'd catch hundreds of fish. And nobody else that, fish knew that stuff. And it's just, that's part of the sport. It's part of the sport I love. I get excited about it. I love going to ICAST show. I love seeing the new trends. I love seeing the new stuff. So it's cringy to me to see so much hate.
A lot of hate. So
much, let's bash the new hotness. Let's just bash it because we don't want that. Yeah. It's sad. It's really sad. We're bringing
up forward facing sonar because that became part of the conversation.
Yeah.
The new guys know the forward facing sonar. If they took that away, they couldn't win. And I would give you Jacob Wheeler and say, go put him out there without forward facing sonar, and he'd probably still beat you every single day. It's just that these guys, Derek talking about their work ethic. They work hard. Yeah. They are out there. They either live by the water, they live near a body of water. That is what they do. This is their job. And I don't know if any, some of these bigger names that are the younger guys, if they're doing anything else besides fishing. Derek went all in 2 years ago, 3 years this year. Yeah. But, is that their soul? And he doesn't even get to spin because although 2 years ago he was listed as the rookie class, he really wasn't a rookie to fishing.
Been fishing a while.
He's been fishing for a long time, married with kids. I mean, he doesn't get the time to get out on the water the way that these guys do, and the way that, and that you can tell a difference between the guys that are out there that are truly out there working all the time. If you look at their social media, you see it. And you see it. It shows in what they produce when they go out. I mean, they are regularly in the top. It's not because of the specific equipment they have. It's because they've spent a ton of time practicing, learning, studying, whatever it is. But it's been very hard over this weekend to watch. It seems like it's been pointed at the rookie class. Like, that's what the words are coming up in the conversation specifically. All this, the rookies, and they start naming names of all these younger guys that are newer coming up, and how they're constantly, you look at the top 50 and who's in that, and is it any of the guys that you grew up knowing,
Yeah. And this is in no way saying that the new rookie class is not all cheaters and they're not all doing the wrong thing. It's not saying they're not doing that. It's not saying that. It's saying until we got facts, until Bass posts pictures of waypoint envelope money exchange between Joe Blow and a elite pro, until we see that kind of stuff, let's stop pointing fingers and stop throwing around allegations and stop stirring up the rumor mill. Because like a lot of these podcasts have shown, I mean, the people that are trying to fact check, like Cerebral Tackle, for example, that are trying to fact check this stuff, they're finding out these allegations are false. Yep. Like the polygraph, the reasons for the polygraphs are false and stuff like that. And we're not getting a lot of information from the actual organizations. So let's just stop. Let's stop with the allegations. The thing I likened it to, and the thing I guess this really makes me upset. I'm a very religious man, very religious. Give God my life many years ago, and I'm following Him 100%. And He's first, above my wife. My wife's a very close second. I love her to death, but she knows God's first in my life, and I hope she treats me the exact same way and puts God first. But it likens it to me to the crucifixion. And I'm not saying because Jesus, any of these people were like Jesus. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the mob mentality of Jesus was new. Jesus was doing different stuff that other people were not doing in that time. And they didn't like it. They didn't like that He was doing things different than them. And the mob mentality of, ooh, we got to point blame at this guy because of what he's doing. And another examples I brought up is after World War II, when we were attacked by Pearl Harbor, we concentrated in camps here in the United States hundreds of thousands of Japanese descent people because they were different and they were scary to us. And if history doesn't tell you anything, there's lots of other circumstances that are like that, is we can be better than that. We can learn from our history. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to learn from history and see where we messed up. And we've messed up in situations where we as a society jump on a bandwagon and we start just crucifying the new, the change, the whatever, and we don't stick to the facts, and we don't stick to the mentality of, hey, let's treat people the way we'd want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And if I was doing something right and I was getting alleged that I wasn't doing something right, do I want a third person coming in and bashing me and another person bashing me, another person? No, I wouldn't want that. It's difficult enough when somebody's calling me out. But to have just people jumping on top of that over and over again, I think it's that's what's sad. And so
it just can harm. I mean, when you talk about this particular sport in general, your name is your brand, and to have, social media is just, I mean, that's where it's basically at. I mean, we didn't have that years ago. I didn't grow up with social media, that didn't come till later, so that has made it easier for people to come together and feed off of each other and bash. But those things, when you look at that, like, I cannot even imagine being on that side of the things where, I've gone through, I've worked that hard all year. I've, as far as we know what he is saying, if you take somebody, what they're saying is the truth, you come out there publicly saying, I didn't do anything wrong. And to have something taken away from him like that, one, that's his livelihood. Number two, that's his brand. That's his name. Yeah. And to be on such I mean, we don't even have, that's kind of the point, is that you don't even have the facts. Like, I would believe it if Bass put it out, because what are the questions? What was specific? We saw the specific that they had 2 questions that
He didn't ask.
but you didn't hear everything else, like who accused them. That's coming from other people. What the specific allegation was, you're hearing that from other people. You're not hearing that directly from the source, and so it's hard to watch that kind of stuff when just watching him go through fishing in general. Just you're trying to all you have is your name. When you're talking to sponsors, it's your name and your record. It's your name and your record, and it's like, okay, that's what they have, and so it's very damaging to people to have, thousands of people. I can't even imagine. We've only seen probably just a few of the little posts.
Yeah.
I know it's so much bigger than that. Just to imagine that just people are constantly, oh, you're a cheater, you're a cheater. I just cannot imagine
but it's a vast
what that's
majority is just negative.
Yeah,
and negative. It's just like that dog piles mentality of, hey, while everybody's jumping on him, we're gonna jump on him too. And it's
because we'll just fall in the mix.
Like,
we won't stand out. You would stand out if it was 100 positive comments and you were the one that was negative. No, you're in a pile of a bunch of negatives, so it's just kind of like, oh, I won't stand out, so I'll just shoot my shot right here and say what I want to say, and but not thinking about sponsors are on social media. What are they seeing? What are they having to deal with on the backside of it? It's just a lot, Well,
let's just be better. Let's just be better than that.
It's kind of like it's no point. I can understand having a comment on it when all the facts come out, and maybe they won't all come out. I don't know. But.
Well, let's also keep it to a perspective of it's no fruit for the person making this allegations. There's no fruit for the people being mean. They're not getting anything out of it. They're not getting paid because they put a negative comment on there. But they are detrimentally hurting somebody. Mm-hmm. So why do it?
The point is, think about it.
Yeah.
Think about that before you, not to say that anybody watching this is one of those people that's out there making negative comments. But if you have that thought, just think about everything. I think about it, I can't imagine if it was Derek, it would just be awful because, you're very defensive. You're like, oh.
Like I mentioned in my last post, please like, subscribe, and go check out that last post. I gave my initial breakdown of what I thought about it. Mm-hmm. I mentioned that I had 2 lie detector tests in the past 2 years. And, I was nervous. And I had no reason to be nervous. 100%. No, I didn't cheat. No, I didn't do anything against the rules. But the questions were oddball questions. Honestly, they were just some weird questions. And at the same time, it kind of was like in my head questioning, like, how do I even answer some of these questions? But I tried to stay as calm. I laughed about it with the investigators. The one was a former FBI agent, and I laughed with them about it. Like, hey, I'm in this seat, so I must be doing something right, But I try to just stay calm. But at the same time, if I would have failed those, lost our earnings for that tournament, destroyed our reputation in that tournament trail, and then as I'm trying to build a social media brand, would have destroyed that as well, just by having 1 or 2 questions come up as false positive, because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. But where my breathing and my heart rate and my the way I react to that question changes, and it may just be in my head I have a thought about it that's not a admission of guilt thought, but it's just like, hey, this is a weird question, because I know I had those while I was doing it. Mm-hmm. But it's just scary to think that the world has come to, let's take this little bit of information and let's destroy this guy's life.
Yeah.
And let's just bash him into the dirt and social media as much as we can. That is just alarming. And if any of you watching this that don't do that, we have to remember there's 2 sides of this coin. Mm-hmm. There are those that don't agree with it, and for the most part, they're quiet. Mm-hmm. And then those that do this and that speak up against those people and that are just let's jump on the bandwagon. For us that are quiet and don't agree with this kind of stuff, we need to start speaking up.
Speak up. I tell him no, don't speak. He makes me nervous because he's the person.
I will get
see
emotional.
posts and he's like,
I'll get emotional about it and have to step back and say, okay, let me just think about this.
He'll start to type something. I'm like, well, hold on now, because
I'm a knee-jerk reaction kind of person.
He's building his brand. I'm like, no, you gotta be careful. Like, what are people gonna think of that? Are they gonna read it right? I mean, it's just everybody interprets things differently. You can read into things. I mean,
but we do need to speak up.
I know. And so I was like, he said, I'm gonna speak up on this matter, and I was like, really? Do you really want to do that? But but he's bringing up a good point. I mean, the people that are silent, that don't agree with it and don't speak up, they're it's like, come on, speak up a little bit, because it does give,
especially the ones that have names.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I know you've got a name, and I know you've worked hard for your brand and your reputation and all of that, but please, if you've got information that could help, if you've got an opinion that can be heard that's in a positive way, that can counteract the so much negativity on social media, please let it be heard.
And hey, there is the flip side of that. If you have a name and you have a negative opinion, some of them maybe are keeping those things to themselves. So hey, that's a great thing too, because you're not adding fuel to the fire.
True.
So, there's the other side of it too. I don't think that anybody should be adding fuel to the fire already that's there. Yeah. It's just, it's difficult. It's difficult to watch. This weekend has been, golly, just full of negative, constant. I mean, something new I felt like was coming out, like morning and then afternoon, something new. Yeah. It was like, golly, what is happening over here? If we had dings set up for all this stuff, I mean, the thing would have been blowing up, all going off. I mean, it was just really bad. So, I don't know. It's a lot. Probably a tough weekend for a lot of those young guys. It's just kind of sad, I know how much work goes into the tournaments. I know how much he puts into it. And, that's the final tournament of their season, and this is the way you end it. It's just, that's kind of tough. I can't imagine, now you're planning for next year, and, this is where their sponsorship talks start to happen again and all this stuff. And it's like, it's just not a positive way to end things.
No, not especially with such a great tournament ending.
Yeah.
I'm an MLF guy, and I'm looking at Bass and saying, wow, that's a phenomenal ending. Just with the changes in the Angler of the Year and the Rookie of the Year points races back and forth, the people that were fighting for their classic berth, because that's the way they do it on their points race. And it was a very eventful. I mean, they're catching 25 to 29 pound bags, bags of smallmouth on an iconic St. Lawrence River. It was ridiculously a good tournament. It should have been so much positivity.
Hey, and let's just take a second that I feel like someone that's been around for a very, very, very long time, his retirement got overshadowed by the events that happened.
Two people.
Okay, so I know of Rick Clunn.
And Mark Zona.
Oh, yeah. Mark Zona. I've watched some of his shows. But Rick Clunn, who stands up on stage, who has been doing this for years, I know his name.
I gave him props earlier this year because the third place finish I had at West Point was a cranking bite. And I know I wouldn't have done as good as I did without the information he shared throughout his lifetime. A living legend.
Yeah.
And Mark Zona is exactly the same way. Bassmaster will not be the same without him. And for both of them to be leaving in this last event,
I haven't heard anybody talking about that.
It's been overshadowed by negativity
Yeah.
and let's crucify the rookies. And it's sad. It really is. Sad state of affairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we just want to get on here.
Yeah.
We wanted to address it. My beautiful wife, I'm so happy she came on because she is my voice of reason behind the scenes and obviously now in front of the scenes.
Hey, and y'all can let him know if you want to see more of these. Let him know in the comments.
Yes,
if you want to see more.
Please. Let me know
if
she brings a great take to this. I truly enjoyed it. I truly enjoyed you being here. Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Thanks
for talking about it again with me. I like talking about it.
I love you. And thank you all for tuning in. Please smash that subscribe and like button. And comment, like she's saying, down below. Let us know if you want us to keep doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This is the not podcast. We're not doing another
Not
podcast.
podcast.
This is not a podcast. I do some podcasts with the Basscast. That's enough podcasting for me. I just want to get on here and talk about some things that were close to our heart, and we truly appreciate you joining in. Thank you all. We love you all, and God bless you all.
Have a blessed week.
Bye.
Bye.